No time to waste. What is up, fight fans, people of the world, people of whatever other planet may be listening to this? Go on, you alien bastards. Uh, my name is, I don't know what that was. This is the Fighting Words podcast. My name is Ryan Galati. I have done this intro too many times today because of recording errors. I am joined by Spencer Kloss and Zulfi Shake, who have gotten quite the laugh out of these errors. They are going to pay my therapy bills. But this is, like I said, the Fighting Words podcast, fresh after UFC 300. We are just going to do a little discussion around UFC 300. We're going to do little segments that each of us have come up with kind of near the back end of this podcast. But just to start out, we're just going to kind of cover, I guess we'll say what our favorite fights were from the UFC 300 card. All I'm going to ask is for Zulfi and Spencer. It won't be my pick either, but let's not pick Holloway Gaethje because, as Dana White said, it was the holy shit moment of all time. So that's kind of just the most unfair one to pick of the bunch. And with a star-studded card, as well as that one was, I feel like there was a lot more for us to talk about. So who should I start on this time for this fourth recording? Because it's been a little 2-1. So should I go back to Zulfi? Because, recordings are bullshit. Zulfi, I'm going to start with you. What is your kind of fight standout? I guess that wasn't the holy shit moment of all time.
Yeah, I'm glad we're avoiding the Max Holloway Justin Gaethje one because there are so many good fights on this card that I do want to give love to a couple other ones, and I'm glad we went that way. So I'll go with Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic. And I know Spencer had the same answer as well in terms of the first fight he wanted to show love to. So I'm thankful I get to do it. But Yuri Prohaska is a madman. Like he's through and through. That's how he fights. He's called a samurai. We've talked about it. We've joked about it. The guy punches trees to train. And this fight was kind of like the epitome of his fighting style. He was getting beat down by Rakic, just eating punches left and right. But that didn't deter him at all. In fact, I know you mentioned this earlier, Ryan, where it almost motivated him. It makes him level up in kind of a regard. And he used that to walk through the fire, just right into the firing line of Rakic, went through him and walked him down for that knockout. And it was just one of those things where you can see the power that Yuri has. You know the kind of champion he is. The only time you kind of saw weakness from him really recently was when he fought Alex Pereira, and no one's going to blame Yuri for that because Alex Pereira is a monster in his own right. So Yuri just kind of came out there, looked how he's supposed to, and he was just so impressive. And you don't leave that fight with anything negative on Yuri. If anything, you're even more enthused about a rematch potentially with him and Alex. If he's gonna be so willing to go into the firing line, that may not work in his favor against a guy like Alex Pereira, but at least you know he's gonna make it a good fight and it's gonna be entertaining. And if he can come out with that same mentality, I think he's deserving of another title shot really soon. But just this fight in and of itself was just such an epitome of the type of person, the type of fighter that Yuri is, and I thought that was awesome.
Thank you for giving me the credit for that level up motivate point, even though it's not on record. Haha, still pissed. Spencer, Spencer, what I guess he took your initial pick. What's your little, I guess, secondary?
Well, luckily for me, there was a lot of great fights on this card. But I'm going to take the other answer that me and Zulfi seem to be flip-flopping on, and I'm going to go with Davison Figueiredo, choking out Cody Garbrandt. It's recently come out that Garbrandt suffers from vertigo for a long time. It was since 2012 or something, like 12 years. So that's pretty crazy that he accomplished all the stuff he did while having that. But it's not to take away from Davison Figueiredo looking like a true bantamweight. Like the guy is just so strong. He's a beast on the feet. He can grapple. He's obviously got great jiu-jitsu, and he showed that. He's kind of a showcase fight for him. He's moved up in the rankings, and he might just fight for the bantamweight title soon. And that would be a very fun thing to happen.
He jumped up 2 spots. He's up to 6 now. So I'm with you, Spencer. I think he's going to be challenging very soon.
He was always
We can only
also
hope.
I don't know if it was just I don't know. I don't want to say he has an intimidating face, so maybe that was part of it. But for the weight class he was in before, at a lighter weight, he always looked huge. He always looked intimidating. Brendan Moreno did not look like he belonged in a cage with him. All credit to Moreno being as good as he was. Figueiredo's filled out at a short height. He is a big dude. So I don't even think he looked that far outside of where Garbrandt was, I guess, size wise. I don't think if it was a new fan and you showed them that fight, you'd be like, yeah, that's Figueroa's division. Do you guys agree?
No, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And he looked healthy too. That's the thing. He looked Sometimes at 125, like he kind of had a bit of a weaker chin. Like Moreno did drop him a few times in the fight that he still won. And he looks sometimes that he'd like gas out. He looks a lot more healthy at 135, and sometimes that can be a huge benefit for fighters.
For my pick, because I just sent it to you guys first. Before we actually started the recording, I said there was an avenue I was gonna go with it. I lied. Bum bum bum. I need that drum sound effect from Zencaster or whatever that was. It's stupid Zen. My pick is going to be an individual performance that actually belonged to a loser of their fight. I'm gonna give it to Yan Xiaonan. I don't
Okay.
know why. I can't, like every fan like that isn't even a deep fighting fan going into this card knew who Zhang Weili was, knew the danger she provided. For the most part, like I don't want to just like use that whole like casuals debate. Not many people knew about Yan Xiaonan and knew like what to expect from her coming into this fight. As the only reason I'm kind of giving this out, as someone who in my life has been choked out before, uh, and also not at a gym or anything like that. And not in it, I wasn't in danger.
Okay.
I wasn't in danger. But as someone that has been choked out, unconscious, she was damn well out at the end of round one. To come back and fight a further 4 rounds against debatably the best women's fighter in the world right now is remarkable. And quite frankly, I think, would that end as cards? 49, 46, I think was two of them. I want to
I think
say
there was two 49 45s and one
45s.
49
Yeah.
46.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think it was that far apart of a fight, especially considering how in danger Yan Xiaonan was at the end of that first round. The fact that like she got choked out, had like the 30 seconds to kind of recuperate, and just comes out round two with like the quickest 1-2 combo you've ever seen from someone, let alone someone that like just woke up 2 seconds ago and probably wondered what country they were in. I thought it was absolutely remarkable, and the fact that she still went out there and gave us a show, even though she had to come back too for about 30 seconds in between the round. My pick was going to go to Diego Lopez because I think we all know by this point that Diego Lopez is extremely special and has, I think, the world in his hands as far as the featherweight division goes. Right, featherweight, yeah.
Mhm.
But Yan Xiaonan, I think we're going to see her in a title fight again. I think she has nasty hands, and I think people didn't realize the amount of fight she has in her until that fight. When you have that kind of heart to you, that just doesn't go away. And I think we're going to see her for a long time to come. And honestly, I hope she becomes champ at some point. I love Zhang Weili. Um, I'm a Yan Xiaonan fan now, and I'm not afraid to say it, even though there's no fear that can possibly come behind it.
Good pick.
Gosh, what else there is to? I mean, there was a lot of finishes on the cards. Do you guys have like other than the ones you mentioned? Do you guys have like a finish that stood out? I guess I mean the Pereira one was pretty massive. Um, anything else that stood out for you?
I have a couple. Most of them play into the kind of category type game that I came up with or segment to talk about. So maybe we can get into that later. But there was a couple like interesting finishes. The one that really does stick out to me, and it's part of like the segment that I have, is Kayla Harrison just dominating Holly Holm before choking her out. I thought that was super impressive and just what a way to make a debut. And I think she's going to be challenging almost immediately, I would say, based on that performance.
I don't know if you guys will like agree with this, but one area of growth that I'm like really happy I've walked into as like an MMA fan, for some reason, the like aftermath of fights is slowly becoming part of my favorite parts, becoming part of my favorite parts. I don't know, becoming a big portion of like what I find fun in the fighting world. Like for example, Kayla Harrison dominates Holly Holm, gets on the mic after and is like, I'm gonna be champ like real soon. Amanda Nunes on Instagram has like a recording of Kayla Harrison on the screen and just goes Chama. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't know what's happening. Then same with Yuri Prochazka. Like the day after the fight, he's in the woods with a black eye in front of a cabin that's like the size of him. Like doesn't even look like he can lay down in it. He's like, thank you for your support. I'm like, what is going on? Like, where do these guys go? What do they do after their fights? I don't know. Just quickly, Renato Moicano post-fight interview based on our episode last week. Did it for you guys? Did it stand up to expectations?
Oh hell
Absolutely.
yeah, 100%. And I sent you guys a video later. Moicano was on the MMA hour with Ariel Hawani. This guy is just talking about economics and just like the debt crisis in the United States. He's a smart dude, man. Look, when Money Moicano lives up to the name, when he says he cares about money, it's not just making it; it's also keeping it. Which kudos to him. And something that you may not have seen that was so funny to me is after the fight, Moicano did like an interview with Aaron Bronstetter, and Bronstetter thought it'd be funny to show him what Canadian money looks like. And then they took a picture holding the bills, and Moicano just didn't give the money back. He just took the bill, the $10 or whatever, and just walked away with it. So Money Moicano, living up to his name, made some Canadian money that day too. What a legend.
Dude, why would you not?
Moicano needs money.
If I'm handed $10, I'm keeping it. The one thing I did especially find funny that was more of like a Twitter thing. He shouted out that like Ludwig von Mises
Yeah.
book or whatever. There was something on Twitter that was like talking about like apparently those books or like the search results on like Ludwig von Mises like kind of economic strategies and stuff like that like skyrocketed to the moon like in the recent days like after someone like replied to that and was like, oh, would this have something to do with like this mention from this like conference somewhere or whatever? And then someone just replied and was like, no, Money Moicano. Just like it had like the most likes of like any part of it. It was fantastic. I don't know how it
Moicano's got
happened.
motion, man.
Dude, he does. But like it was so weird that like it skyrocketed as much. All these finance nerds were like, oh, it must be because of this. It's just because of some Brazilian dude after a fight just screaming about like money and economics. Don't know how it makes sense, but the aftermath is definitely the one of the most fun parts for me at the moment. But um I guess I don't know. I'm kind of pushing the cards here, but we mentioned the little segments. Zulfi, since you kind of gave a little heads up to yours, do you want to start? We didn't really put an order to these. We're just gonna have a little fun, have
Yeah.
little games. We can just, Zulfi can explain his, we'll explain ours. Boom, boom.
Yeah, let's do it. We don't have too much time anyways. We like to keep it short and quick. So the segment idea I came up with, I told you guys before, is almost like would you rather or like this or that. I have four different sets of questions, kind of like a this or that or would you rather. We don't have to spend too much time on them, but I think it's a good way to go over some of the fights without just going through each one like card by card type of thing. So the first one I have is kind of like which one would you say was the more questionable strategy out of these two? One, you got Aljamain Sterling and his fight against Calvin Kattar and basically trying to grapple and points his way to a win. I feel like he said he wanted a knockout. He wasn't even impressed by it. We all agreed off camera that like he won, but it didn't really feel like much of a win because like no one's really pushing him up the charts at featherweight after that. Even though it was kind of like his debut, basically he's 8th on the UFC's featherweight rankings, which I still think is a little surprising to be honest. So that was him, Aljamain Sterling. Or would you say it was a more questionable strategy? But Holly Holm trying to grapple and wrestle with Kayla Harrison, a champion judoka and an Olympic gold medalist in this. This is what she does. And Holly Holm's strategy was apparently like, I'm going to try to beat you at it. And spoiler alert, it didn't work.
Can I start on this because I'm very fucking spirited towards it and I have
Let's hear
rage. Maybe it
It's
has
all
to do with
yours.
all those intros I did up until now, but I'm just
it.
filled with anger and I'm gonna release it on one. Aljamain Sterling is a moron. Uh Aljo, you're not listening, so I'm not worried. But if you are, you could probably hurt me. But honestly, no one would be impressed if you did. Just like Calvin Kattar. You Aljo got I don't know if I've ever seen a more spoon-fed matchup in my life. He was moving up a division, and the matchmakers went, oh, who is the least wrestler type fighter in our rankings at this division? Oh, Calvin Kattar. Have them. Calvin Kattar is the by definition boxer and looked absolutely lost and was coming back after like what 500 something days like out of the octagon.
Yeah.
Aljamain Sterling had the world in his hands. Could have like I don't know how he didn't finish him. You're like you got set up to have this immaculate finish and be able to get on the mic and be like, this is where I belong now. fire my way up the rankings, give him Ortega, give him whatever. I don't know who I care to see him fight anymore. Because he just, like, I watched that fight on a bus coming home. And watching the bus drive was more fun than watching Aljamain Sterling do what he was doing. Like, I don't understand how he squandered that opportunity so horribly. I hate him. I maybe it's I'm a Suga Sean O'Malley fan, as mentioned in the last pod. That has nothing to do with this. I actually like him from that fight. I thought he was kind of funny. Now he just ruined it. He's just boring. He's stale. He doesn't take advantage of his opportunities. I don't like if when he fights again, it'll be too soon for me. But that's my 2 cents. Aljo, if you're listening, please don't hurt me. Spencer.
I feel like we're gonna have a lot of moments on this podcast. That's the Paul Felder on Twitter. You wouldn't say it to my face. Where he's like, you wouldn't say it to my face to the guy, and he's like, yeah, you're right, because you kicked my ass.
Yeah.
Like,
Pretty much. That's exactly how this pod's gonna go.
I don't care.
So yeah, the answer to this question's hard because you're absolutely right about Aljo. Like he actually was gaining some fans because he had that. I remember he had that jiu-jitsu match, and the guy was butt scooting the whole time, and then Aljo was like really twirling him around. And like he's like, oh, why would you come to just boring, blah blah blah. And then you go out and do that on the biggest card of all time. Like I can't not agree with you, but at the same time, if we're talking about who had the more questionable decision making, it was definitely Holly Holm because she initiated grappling with the judo gold medalist, and the rest was history. So I don't know if she actually. I feel like going into the fight, she felt like she couldn't win, to be honest, and she was just there to get paid, and she's probably gonna retire maybe after one more payday. But I don't know what she was thinking in there.
Yeah, it was just weird because like I think you're right. I think she knew going in this was going to be an uphill battle, which is insane because she's the UFC veteran, former champion. She's been here, she knows that. But I think like it was almost feeling like set up for this to be the grand debut of Kayla Harrison in the UFC. But it was just weird. Like if you're gonna go out, like go out on your shield a little bit, I guess is a term or whatever. Like kind of go out doing what you do, swinging to kind of like submit yourself to what you know is Kayla Harrison's strength. I agree is the more questionable strategy. My main thing with Aljo, like I know you said it too, Ryan, like you were spoon fed this opportunity and he made such a big deal about being at this frame, this weight that's going to be so much better for him. And then to not take advantage of that at all was very questionable to me. But I think overall, I do side with both of you. I side with you, Spencer, in terms of like the more questionable, just like in ring strategy was definitely Holly Holm. But I do appreciate your enthusiasm on that, Ryan.
Okay.
The next one I want to get into is who would you rather have as a more desirable prospect? And I know what Ryan's answer is going to be, but I'm still going to make this a conversation anyways. But first prospect, obviously, is Bo Nickel. He's 3-0 in the UFC, 5-0 if you count the Contender Series. Professionally, he's only lost once, and that was his first pro fight in 2019. And we saw that fight against Cody Brundage. It was actually the first time he's been to the second round in a fight. All of his other fights, he's finished in the first round before that. He's mostly just been by submissions. He has 2 knockouts, but there's not too much diversity there. And the other prospect, we did mention him before, I believe, was Diego Lopez. He's 3-1 in the UFC. He's won 3 in a row. His only loss came via decision, and that was to Movsar Evloev, who's obviously a monster himself, 8-0 in the UFC. He has a much larger sample size in pro MMA at 24-6 overall, and his array, I guess, of finishes is a lot more diverse. 10 KOs, 12 submissions, and all 3 of his UFC wins have come by first round like stoppages. So pretty impressive in his own regard. But obviously, both those guys have very promising careers in the UFC. Who would you rather take in terms of a desirable prospect?
Spencer,
Ryan,
you
go
go
first.
No, oh, I go first.
Oh no. Okay, if you want Spencer to go first, you can go. I'll let you wait. Spencer, what do you
got? I'm gonna go with Diego Lopez, just based off uh strength of competition is definitely like the number one reason. Diego Lopez is fighting ranked contenders already, and against Evloev, that was a great fight. Like he was in that fight the whole time. It was on short notice as well. I don't know how many days, but I know it was on short notice. And he almost beat one of the potentially a future featherweight champ, like a guy who pretty much dominated Arnold Allen, who I thought is one of the better fighters in the featherweight division. So I'm gonna go with Diego Lopez. Talking about a big dude too for his weight class. Like, holy cow, that guy's huge. Like he's an absolute brick shit house at the weight division. I love it. Bo Nickel, I don't hate him as much as some other people, but I just don't think he's proven himself yet. But he looks all right. He also, it feels to me like if he fights a good striker with really good like MMA wrestling, that he could definitely get chin. But we'll have to see about that. And I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to swing it over to Ryan to talk about these two prospects here.
Diego Lopez, only answer. No. Okay. I've talked a lot of shit coming into this. I have respect for what Bo Nickel has accomplished. I don't have respect for the fact that him fighting Cody Brundage was a main card fight on this card. I don't have respect for the fact that he's 6-0 and it seems like he is. I've mentioned the word spoon fed already. It's just like I'm over it already as far as this story's going. I don't approve of like this whole idea that, oh wow, like he's really the top prospect. Let's just like push him to the moon. Because he doesn't have much of a personality to him either. If he was like this really, really good trash talker, I'd be like, oh, okay, like he created a lot of hype around these fights. He like got on the mic after he beat Cody Brundage in what was a good performance. It definitely left a lot to be desired, in my opinion. Especially the fact that like on the feet, Cody Brundage was trying to make it a war, and Bo Nickel just seemed to be like, "Oh hell no," and just was like, "I'm gonna hold you down for a while." Like he honestly, Bo Nickel slightly got clowned at times in that fight. Like at the end of round one, where he was just landing those like little like baby shots, and Brundage was like looking into the cameras, being like, oh no," like that kind of thing. When you're getting like slightly clowned by Brundage, that is just like never a good sign of what are things to come. And then yeah, after like when he was in his post-fight interview, he's like, "I know I have haters out there. You're gonna love me one day." Like, what? No, just accept your haters because you're spoon-fed. Like, just if he, I don't know, if he bled into it a little more and wasn't this just like Dana's baby in the carousel kind of idea, I'd be fine with it. But Diego Lopez is a beast. Let's just not put it lightly there. You mentioned that Evloev fight. That is like the instant moment where I became a Diego Lopez fan, considering he took that on short notice when no one would fight the guy. Like Evloev was feared by a lot of people trying to make their way up in the division because he was just a blockade, essentially. Like he's going to stop you on your course. Diego Lopez didn't care. He went in there, he tried to get it done, what he could get done, and like you said, he was in it the entire time. Now to put away a guy like Sadiq Yusuf, who like people might not be the most familiar with, but has a good resume to him. I think the sky's the limit for him. And I guess I won't touch on anything more because there are a lot of fights that I want to see him in, but then maybe that'll come a little later too in a little game we'll play. So I think Diego Lopez too. I think he's impressed me more. I need to see Bo Nickel against better competition.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like I feel like the UFC, like to your guys' point, is building up Bo Nickel as a prospect more than Diego Lopez. But even they understand that like in terms of talent and competition, Diego Lopez has faced more because like Bo Nickel, he's only fought on pay-per-views, and you mentioned it, Ryan. He kind of feels like a bit of like Dana White's like a baby, like dream child in a sense. And then like Diego Lopez, like he's ranked now. He's 14th. He jumped over Yusuf in the featherweight rankings, whereas Bo Nickel obviously still isn't ranked in middleweight. Maybe that's also because of the level of competition in the divisions per se, but like still, like I think they even understand that like one guy has proven himself a lot more, but it doesn't take away the fact that it's rubbing people the wrong way that like Bo Nickel is being presented as this guy is like, oh, he is the next one. Keep watching him. And like he hasn't really had to prove it yet, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But I think you're both right with those points. That Diego Lopez is kind of proven as the better prospect, but Bo Nickel is definitely not going anywhere because the UFC really wants him to turn into this guy. So it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. And I'm going to move on to the last one. I had an extra one on Yan Jianan and Weili Zhang, but we kind of talked about it already with your answer, Ryan, about that fight and the crazy stuff that happened. But the last one I want to go to is like, I want both of you to put yourself like, you're in UFC 300, you're a UFC fighter. Which moment would you rather have had? So obviously the most insane one I guess we can agree on is Max Holloway's insane last second knockout of Justin Gaethje for the BMF belt. But for context, he was winning that fight, and maybe that does take a bit of the risk factor out of it. Although, like, you are inviting to get knocked out when you ask Justin Gaethje to meet you in the middle of the octagon, that is still very risky, obviously. But then he just absolutely clocks Gaethje, puts him to sleep. It was honestly a little terrifying seeing how Gaethje fell. And that was one of my most memorable moments where my jaw just absolutely dropped. I remember like audibly gasping at that, and that was insane. So would you rather be Max Holloway in that, knocking him out, or would you rather have the absolute like just savage coolness of Alex Pereira when he gets a nut shot from Jamal Hill? Herb Dean is coming to break it up. And when I tell you, Alex Pereira just straight up gave him the hold up, let me cook meme. Like he just stopped him. He's like, herbs and spices, stop. I got this. I am gonna do what I'm about to do. Just watch. And all he just immediately after puts his foot on Jamal Hill, stops him, hits him with that left hook, and it's night night. Jamal Hill's eyes roll back. And the most terrifying part of it is that Alex Pereira didn't even hit him clean. He didn't connect flush, and it was still enough power, not just to put Jamal Hill on his ass. He had his eyes rolling back. Like this guy was out for a solid like couple seconds there. Like that is terrifying. And I just think like to do that and to do it against a former champion and to end it off by just being like, ta-da, like, look at this. Like he's presenting it like a fucking art project. Like he's an 8-year-old, be like, hey, mom, look at this. But instead, it's the body of a former fucking champion that you just knocked out. Like how insane. Like it's just the coolness of Alex Pereira. Would you rather be that savage, or would you rather have the insanity of Max Holloway putting Justin Gaethje to sleep? Which one would you rather go with if you were a fighter?
This may just be a little like character dependent, and maybe I'm being a little unfair answering in this way. Uh, I'm basing it off the fact that Max Holloway has eaten the most strikes of anyone in UFC history. So I'm gonna go with Alex Pereira. I don't like all respect to Max Holloway. I don't want to do what that guy does. I don't want to be up in fights and be like, oh, cool. I'm like breezing, he wasn't breezing through it, but like, oh, I was winning, no problem. Let me give Justin Gaethje a chance to open up a can of whoop ass on me for the last 10 seconds. I think he's an absolute psycho for that. I'm glad it worked out for him. But with Pereira, it's the fact that, like you said, it was not a left hand from hell. Like it wasn't. I would even say like the ones that he hit on Izzy were like a lot worse. When you could put it into slow mo, like he lands the left hand, and Jamal Hill becomes an art piece of like a shocked woman. Like his face, he gets knocked out, but it's not even a fact of like he just like loses conscious right away. His initial face is like the expression of holy shit, this dude hits hard. And then he goes down. And I'm like, that is so impressive that this man not only has the mantra of like Powhatan, meaning like stone hands, he can put you to sleep with the shortest left hand ever and not even make a big deal of it. Like he'll put you to sleep. He'll go to the back room. I think you mentioned like Bronstetter a bit earlier. Like Bronstetter had like a little disposable camera that like he put out pictures from. I don't know if you like saw that on his Instagram. Uh and like one of the pictures is like his picture right after like I think it was right after like just before. And it was Boathon just like standing there with like the most blank face ever. Like he didn't just defend his belt against one of the scariest dudes in the world. It's just the coolness of him, like you said. I would much rather have that as kind of my personality trait. But Spencer, maybe you'll think a little differently.
I actually like originally I still don't have my answer, to be honest. Like those are like two of the sickest moments ever. And originally I was actually gonna pick Pereira because of just how cool he is. Um, but I'm actually gonna pick Holloway just because it was the BMF belt, and I think it just I don't think any other person in the UFC, it goes for both people, to be honest. Neither anyone else in the UFC wouldn't have done what neither that guy did, but no one else in the UFC would be up 3 rounds to one, probably going to win 4 rounds to one, and like point to the center of the octagon and be like, all right, let's throw down. With a guy like Justin Gaethje, that's not even the most technical, but if there's one thing he has, it's knockout power. So he put himself in the fire. It was, I mean, every fight so far has kind of deserved the BMF belt, but I saw someone on Twitter say, and I can't remember who it was, so I'm sorry, like they should just retire the belt because how do you get
Yeah.
more like badass than that, right? Like That is the most badass moment in UFC history, and it's fully deserving of the belt that I always ripped on before. But for once, I can actually say I'm glad we have that belt, and I think it motivated Max to do that. So I think that moment just goes undefeated all time.
I will say,
Yeah, it
just like
was.
last thing before we get to, sorry to cut you off,
No,
Sophie.
go ahead.
Last thing, just to kind of, I don't know, we're running out of a little bit of time here, but to push us to like the kind of last thing, I like that now Max Holloway, because he definitely was a little like tarnished by like the 3 losses to Volk. When his like Hall of Fame time comes around, he can go into like the Hall of Fame as the badass motherfucker, like at the moment. That's what I think is like the most redeeming thing from that card. But um yeah. Those are good little would you rather, Zulfi. I'm pretty impressed actually. I thought
Thank you.
it I just thought it'd be like, would you
Oh,
rather take a right hand from Holloway in the center of the ring or a left from Poetan once? And I was
No,
like,
because
oh,
the answer to that would be neither. Like, there's no good
yeah,
answer to that
no,
question.
I'll
no,
probably
they all
take the
suck.
right from the lighter guy though.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
point.
fair. Yeah,
Um,
like I just want to quickly say, if I had to pick, I would be Pereira, just because Max Holloway, I for a second there, I thought he killed Justin Gaethje. I don't want to be responsible for ending a guy's life like that, to be quite honest. So, like, call me a bitch all you want, but I just don't ever want to punch somebody that hard in the face and put him on the ground like that. Yes, Jamal Hill was out cold, but you could tell he was knocked out. Justin Gaethje, I was fearing for his life for a little bit there, which is how hard he went down. So I'm just gonna go with the easier option and be cooler with Alex Pereira. But that's me.
calling
Well,
someone a bitch for not
Pereira
wanting to
was
be a
a
murderer is crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
and Pereira was a nice guy about it. He woke him up with a couple follow-up shots. So
there you
Oh
go.
yeah, a really good guy.
yeah.
Like I said, we are kind of just running out of a bit of time just we're doing this on Zoom. We were gonna get to all of our segments, but Spencer, you had a little fun idea. Do you want to, I guess, rip yours out, and then maybe we'll leave mine for a little rainy day?
If you want, yeah, or you can. Yeah, sure. Let's just do mine because we're wasting time. So Max Holloway won 2 bonuses, everyone knows, and they were worth 300K each. So he made 600K in bonuses on Saturday, and that brings his total up to 1,150 or 1,100,000. What's the amount here?
Go
I'm
on,
just gonna go
Spencer, read
1.2
numbers.
million. I can't
Okay.
find the exact amount. It's either 1.15 million or 1.2. I'm
Let's
gonna
go
go
with
1.2
1.2, a
million.
nice number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 1.2, nice and round. I'm gonna quickly ask you guys, I think 4 things here, and I'm gonna ask if you could buy it or not with Max Holloway's UFC bonus money.
Oh,
All
I don't
right.
know.
Okay.
I don't know money at all. It's
So
gonna
for
be
example, here's
horrible.
an easy one. Here's an easy one. All right. McGregor's Lamborghini yacht. Could you buy it with $1.2 million?
Ooh.
No.
I'm gonna say no. Yeah, I don't think so.
No, you could not because it's 4 million. It's way out of
Yeah.
budget.
I was gonna
That
That's an
say.
just
easy
shows how
one.
much McGregor got paid to be like the face of the UFC. Granted, he earned it, but those the Lamborghini yachts ain't cheap, and that guy hasn't fought in a while. So he clearly made some good money while he was at his peak.
It's all that Roadhouse money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one I had to include for sure because it's McGregor UFC, but pretty easy one. The next one,
It clicks.
a 1 bed, 1 bath apartment in downtown Manhattan, New York. Could you buy that with Max
Ooh.
Holloway's violence money?
God, I feel like this is so dependent on where. Like if it's a penthouse, probably not. But
1 bath, 1 bed.
Are
I'm
roaches included? Will there
probably.
be a roach
Yes.
infestation? Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I'm gonna
I
say
didn't-
yes. I'm gonna say you can.
I'm gonna say yes too, and if you say the answer is no, I'm gonna go on realtor.ca and find one that applies.
So from what I found is you can, but you're probably going to be spending right around $1.1 million. So you
God
can
damn.
just barely afford
Golly.
a small apartment in downtown Manhattan. All right, this one's a little bit more Canadian again because we are Canadian. So Google apparently
Oh
knows that,
yeah.
and everything I searched was just popping up Canadian. Um, a Tim Hortons franchise. Could you buy a Tim Hortons franchise with $1.2 million?
I hope so, because if you can, goddamn, Tim Hortons makes more money than I thought. I gotta invest in a Timmy's. I hope for 1.2 mil, you could buy one franchise.
Yeah, I think you gotta say one. Especially knowing that there are like gas station Timmy's and like those ones. I think surely you can.
I don't know if gas station ones are included because
No,
but
don't say
it's actually a trick question because you can, but it depends like which one, obviously. Like the cheapest ones, yes, you can 950 grand for like the cheapest Tim
It's the
Hortons.
cheapest one.
And they range up to all the way like $2.5 million depending on location.
My God, what is it like a freaking restaurant, Tim Hortons for
Dude.
2.5 mil? My goodness.
Fuck
Shows
buying a
you how
house,
much
just give
Timmy's
me a
make.
Timmy's.
Hey, Timmy's is adding pizza apparently, so maybe that's what brought the value up.
So would you rather have a 1 bedroom, 1 bath in Manhattan or a Timmy's?
Probably a Timmy's. So I'm
Honestly,
making my money
probably a
back.
Timmy's.
Yeah, fair.
How much time do we have? All right, last one. Last one. A trip for four to space. Could you buy with $1.2 million?
I I'm gonna just jump out and say no. 4 people to go to space, I feel like it's gonna cost more than $1.2 million.
Even if
That's
you
stupid to say.
buy it for that, I don't want to. So
Me either, to be honest.
I'm gonna say you oh, can you though? Because then like 250 a person?
You think it's just 250 a person?
Probably not, but like I'm
You're
thinking,
sending
could that
like
be possible?
non-astronauts, non-trained people into space.
Yeah, by the way, moronic. I'm just gonna say no and just hope that, you have to spend out your ass to do it.
Actually, you can. You should have trusted your gut.
Oh my
250K
God.
per ticket.
Damn
It's
it!
actually
Oh
yeah,
my God, that seems so irresponsible.
you can find a video on YouTube. Basically, they train you, and then you kind of just go up in this pod that
Oh,
has like
that
six
sounds
people in it, and then you just kind of
Okay.
it's like on a time expiry, and then you just kind of come back down, like, and you do go into outer space, and you can see everything, but like it's not like you're actually flying or doing any of that. You're just kind of a passenger on like a pod.
doesn't time go like way faster in space though? Am I dumb for
No,
saying that?
not really, because you have to be traveling fast though
Yeah,
for time to
like
speed up.
time is relative or whatever. We're not smart enough to be having this
I don't
conversation.
know, dude. Get Neil deGrasse Tyson on this
Yeah.
podcast.
Anyways,
Uh-huh.
that's all. I did have one more, but we don't have time for it, and it was pretty dumb anyway. So
Well,
we'll
dude,
just
Max Holloway, if you're looking to go to space with your son and your wife and one other, congratulations. But I don't know why
yeah.
you would spend your money on that.
Instead, you could just
Interesting.
buy a Tim Hortons franchise. And hey, Max Holloway, big Toronto fan, won his first championship in Toronto. He's a Raptors fan, still is for some reason, which I find kind of
Yeah,
random,
very
but I do
yeah.
like it. So hey, maybe he could buy a Tim's franchise instead. He can afford it.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is gonna be the least Canadian thing I've ever said. Not a huge Tim Hortons fan myself, so I'm gonna say Max Holloway,
Mm.
stay out of
Max
the
Holloway,
picture.
knock him out, just like you did Justin
No,
Gaethje.
no, don't do that, please.
Okay, well, we are running out of time, so just so we don't get cut off like we did last time, we're gonna wrap it up. Those are some of our thoughts from UFC 300. I'm Zulfi Sheikh, joined by Ryan Galati and Spencer Kloss. All of our socials and details will be in this description. Follow, like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Let us know what you think, but we will be back very soon. Thank you so much.
Chong, 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 go loud.